The October rain fell in steady sheets over Chicago's Graceland Cemetery, turning the manicured grounds into a landscape of gray and green. Jasmine Carter stood beneath a large black umbrella, her hand clutched tightly in her mother's, watching as her husband's casket was lowered into the ground. David Carter, beloved husband, son, brother, friend, dead at 37 from a sudden heart attack that no one saw coming. Jasmine was 34, and she felt ancient. The past 5 days had been a blur of phone calls, funeral arrangements, casseroles from neighbors, and sympathetic looks from people who had no idea what to say. What do you say to a woman who kissed her husband goodbye on a Tuesday morning and came home that evening to find paramedics in her living room and a sheet over his body? There were no words, just this, standing in the rain, watching the only man she'd ever loved disappear into the earth. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, the minister intoned, his voice barely audible over the sound of rain hitting umbrellas. Jasmine's mother, Beverly, squeezed her hand. At 59, Beverly was a pillar of strength, a retired nurse who'd raised Jasmine and her brother alone after their father died when Jasmine was 12. She understood this grief in ways others couldn't. "Almost over, baby," Beverly whispered. "Just hold on a little longer." Jasmine nodded, though she wasn't sure what she was holding on for. Her life had ended 5 days ago in that living room. This was just her body going through the motions. Around her stood the witnesses to David's life. His mother, Diane, sobbing openly, supported by David's younger brother Marcus. David's co-workers from the architectural firm where he'd been a junior partner. Friends from their church, from college, from the neighborhood. Faces she recognized, and some she didn't. David had been the kind of man who collected people, who made friends everywhere he went. Jasmine had loved that about him. His warmth, his openness, his genuine interest in everyone he met. Now she wondered if she'd ever really known him at all. The service concluded, and people began the slow migration back to their cars. The repast would be held at Greater Hope Baptist Church, where Jasmine and David had been married 9 years ago. More food, more sympathetic looks, more people telling her that David was in a better place. But David's place was supposed to be with her. In their brick bungalow in Bronzeville, in the bed they'd shared, planning the family they'd been trying to start for the past 2 years. "Mrs. Carter?" Jasmine turned to find a woman standing a few feet away, separate from the dispersing crowd. She was African American, probably in her late 30s or early 40s, wearing a simple black dress and coat. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her face was partially obscured by a black veil attached to a small hat. Dark sunglasses covered her eyes despite the overcast sky. There was something unsettling about her stillness, the way she stood apart from everyone else, like a shadow that didn't quite belong. "Yes?" Jasmine's voice was hoarse from crying. The woman glanced at Beverly, then at the few remaining people nearby, as if waiting for privacy. Marcus was helping Diane to the car. The minister was shaking hands with David's uncle. "I'm sorry for your loss," the woman said, her voice low and measured. "David he was a good man." "Thank you," Jasmine replied automatically, though something in the woman's tone felt off. Not quite sincere, but not cruel either. Something else. Something complicated. "Did you work with David?" Beverly asked, her nurse's instincts sensing something amiss. "No. We knew each other." The woman reached into her black leather purse and pulled out an envelope. Her hands trembled slightly. "I need to give you something. I wasn't sure if I should come today, but I couldn't not come. You deserve to know." "Know what?" Jasmine felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October rain. The woman extended the envelope. When Jasmine didn't immediately take it, she pressed it into her hands. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But you need to know the truth." "What truth? Who are you?" But the woman was already backing away, moving quickly through the headstones toward the cemetery road where cars were parked. "Wait!" Jasmine called after her, but the woman didn't stop. Beverly grabbed Jasmine's arm. What in the world? Who was that? I don't know. Jasmine looked down at the envelope in her hands. It was a standard white business envelope, slightly worn at the edges, unsealed. Her name was written on the front in neat cursive, Jasmine Carter. Don't open that here, Beverly said firmly. Let's get to the church. You can look at it later. But Jasmine's fingers were already sliding under the flap, pulling out what was inside. A photograph. It showed a baby, maybe 6 or 7 months old, with chubby cheeks and a toothless smile. The baby had warm brown skin, dark curly hair, and eyes that Jasmine recognized immediately because she'd been looking into identical eyes for the past 9 years. David's eyes. On the back of the photo, written in the same neat cursive, Cameron, born February 14th, 2024. He's his father too. The world tilted. Jasmine heard her mother calling her name, felt hands steadying her, but everything sounded distant and underwater. She stared at that photograph, at this baby who had David's eyes, David's smile, David's everything. He's his father too. Jasmine. Beverly's voice cut through the fog. Baby, what is it? What's in that envelope? Jasmine couldn't speak. She just handed the photograph to her mother. Beverly looked at it, read the back, and her face went stone cold. Oh, Lord. Oh, David, what did you do? That can't be real, Jasmine whispered. It can't be. David wouldn't. We were trying to have a baby. We were trying for 2 years. He wouldn't. But even as she said it, pieces started clicking into place. The late nights at the office that had increased over the past year. The business trip to Milwaukee last Valentine's Day weekend, February 14th, 2024. The password he'd changed on his phone 6 months ago, claiming it was for work security. The way he'd been distracted lately, distant, like his mind was somewhere else. Somewhere with another woman, with a baby, with a son. We need to go, Beverly said, her voice tight with controlled fury. We need to get you out of this cemetery right now. She guided Jasmine to the car, where Marcus was waiting, having settled their mother in his vehicle. He took one look at Jasmine's face and knew something was catastrophically wrong. What happened? Not here, Beverly said. Follow us to the church. We need somewhere private to talk. The drive to Greater Hope Baptist was a blur. Jasmine sat in the passenger seat of her mother's Camry, still clutching that photograph, staring at this child, this baby who was David's son. David's son with someone else. While she'd been taking ovulation tests and tracking her cycle and crying every month when her period came, David had been making a baby with another woman. And he died without ever telling her. At the church, Beverly steered them past the reception hall where people were already gathering, past the expressions of concern, straight to Pastor Williams' office. Marcus followed, closing the door behind them. Somebody tell me what's going on, Marcus demanded. Jasmine looks like she's about to pass out. Beverly showed him the photograph. Marcus's reaction was immediate and visceral. What the hell? Is this some kind of sick joke? Who gave this to you? A woman at the cemetery, Beverly explained. Came up right after the burial, gave Jasmine an envelope and disappeared. What woman? Did you recognize her? No, Jasmine said, her voice barely audible. I've never seen her before in my life. Marcus started pacing. This could be fake. Someone trying to mess with you during a vulnerable time. There are sick people out there who... Look at the baby's eyes, Marcus, Beverly interrupted. Look at his face. Marcus looked, and his anger deflated into something sadder. Oh, man. Oh, David. What were you thinking? He was born on Valentine's Day last year, Jasmine said mechanically. David told me he had to go to Milwaukee that weekend for a project consultation. He was gone for 4 days. He came home with chocolates and roses and apologized for missing our dinner reservation. She laughed bitterly. He was probably at a hospital, probably holding his newborn son while I was sitting at home alone. We don't know that for sure, Beverly said, though her tone suggested she believed it. But we need to find out. We need to find this woman. We need answers. How? Jasmine felt helpless, drowning. I don't even know her name. I don't know anything. There was a knock on the office door. Pastor Williams poked his head in, concern etched on his weathered face. Everything all right? People are asking for you, Jasmine. Pastor, we need a few more minutes, Beverly said. Can you keep everyone occupied? Of course. Take all the time you need. After he left, Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm going through David's contacts, his emails, his texts, everything. If this woman exists, there's a trail. His phone, Jasmine said suddenly. The police gave me his personal effects. His phone was in there. I haven't looked at it yet. I couldn't. Where is it? At the house, in the bedroom. In the bag they gave me at the hospital. Marcus was already heading for the door. I'm going to get it. You stay here. Don't go out there and face those people until we know more. After Marcus left, Jasmine sank into Pastor Williams' leather chair and stared at the photograph of this baby. Cameron, the inscription said. David's son Cameron, who would grow up without his father. Just like Jasmine would grow old without her husband. Except David hadn't been fully hers, had he? He'd been someone else's too. Some mystery woman who'd shown up at the funeral dressed in black like a ghost from David's secret life. How could he do this? Jasmine whispered. How could he look at me every day and lie? Beverly knelt beside her daughter's chair and took her hands. Baby, I don't have those answers. And honestly, we may never fully understand. David took his secrets with him. But what I do know is this. You're going to survive this. You survived your daddy's death, and you'll survive this too. You're stronger than you know. I don't feel strong. I feel destroyed. Destroyed and strong aren't opposites. Sometimes you have to be destroyed before you can be remade. Jasmine wanted to believe that. But right now, sitting in this church office, holding proof of her husband's betrayal while his body was still being covered with dirt, she couldn't imagine ever feeling whole again. Outside the office, she could hear the murmur of voices, the clink of dishes, the sounds of people eating and drinking and sharing memories of David, talking about what a great guy he was, how much he loved his wife, how tragic it was that he died so young. If only they knew. Marcus returned 40 minutes later, David's phone in hand, his face grim. You found something, Jasmine said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. He sat down heavily. I found a lot of somethings. He opened the phone. Marcus had known David's passcode, the same one he'd used for years. 0922, Jasmine's birthday. Apparently that hadn't changed, even if everything else had. Marcus navigated to the messages and handed the phone to Jasmine. There was a contact saved as Nicole M. The message thread went back 18 months. Jasmine scrolled through with shaking hands. Flirty messages at first, then increasingly intimate, then messages about a pregnancy, about doctor's appointments, about the baby coming, about plans and fears and love. God, there were messages where David told this Nicole that he loved her. The most recent message was from 3 days before David died. Nicole, Cameron's first cold. I'm so worried. Wish you were here. David, on my way. Be there in 20. He went to her, Jasmine said numbly. 3 days before he died, he went to her and their baby. Marcus looked miserable. There's more. I found emails, bank statements. He was sending her money every month. A lot of money. $1,500 since the baby was born. Jasmine felt like she was fragmenting, breaking apart into pieces that would never fit back together. Where does she live? West Side, Garfield Park area. I have an address from the bank transfer records. I need to see her. I need to talk to her. Jasmine, I don't think that's a good idea right now, Beverly cautioned. You're grieving. You're in shock. Maybe wait until when, Mama? Until I've had time to process that my entire marriage was a lie? That my husband had a whole other family I didn't know about? Jasmine stood up, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. No, I need answers. And she's the only one who can give them to me now. Marcus and Beverly exchanged looks. Then we're coming with you, Marcus said finally. You're not doing this alone. Jasmine nodded. First, I need to get through this repast. I need to smile and accept condolences and pretend my world hasn't just imploded for the second time in 5 days. Can you both help me do that? Of course, Beverly said. But honey, you don't have to pretend. You can leave right now if you need to. No. Jasmine looked at herself in the small mirror on Pastor William's wall. Her eyes were red and swollen, her makeup smudged. But there was something harder in her expression now. Something that hadn't been there an hour ago. David's family is out there. His friends. People who loved him. They deserve to mourn him. And I need to hold it together long enough to get through this day. She reapplied her lipstick with steady hands, smoothed down her black dress, and took a deep breath. Let's go, she said. And she walked out of that office with her head high, the photograph of Cameron burning a hole in her purse, carrying secrets that would shatter David's carefully constructed image if anyone knew. But she wouldn't tell them. Not today. Today was for burying David Carter, beloved husband. Tomorrow, she would excavate the truth about who he really was. The next morning dawned cold and clear. The rain finally passed. Jasmine woke in her childhood bedroom at her mother's house in Hyde Park, where Beverly had insisted she stay. The thought of going back to the Bronzeville bungalow she'd shared with David felt impossible. Everything there would remind her of him, of them, of the life that turned out to be a lie. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, at the glow-in-the-dark stars she'd put up when she was 14 and that her mother had never taken down. David used to tease her about them, about how even as a successful financial analyst for a major firm, she still slept under plastic stars like a kid. But David wasn't here to tease her anymore. David was gone. And in his place was a mystery woman named Nicole, and a baby boy with his eyes. Jasmine's phone showed 7:43 a.m. She'd slept maybe 3 hours, waking every time she closed her eyes to see that photograph, that baby's face that was so heartbreakingly familiar yet completely unknown. A text from Marcus. Let me know when you're ready. I'll drive you. Jasmine sat up, her body aching like she'd been in a physical fight. Grief was exhausting. Betrayal even more so. She showered, dressed in jeans and a sweater, armor for what was coming, and found her mother in the kitchen making breakfast. You don't have to do this today, Beverly said, setting a plate of eggs and turkey sausage in front of Jasmine. You could wait. Give yourself time. Time isn't going to change anything. There's still going to be a woman with David's baby whether I wait a day or a week or a month. Jasmine pushed the food around her plate. I need to see her. I need to understand. Understand what? How your husband betrayed you? Baby, there's no understanding that. There's only surviving it. Then I need to know who I'm surviving. Jasmine met her mother's eyes. I need to know who she is, if he loved her, if... Her voice broke. If he was planning to leave me. Beverly came around the table and wrapped her arms around her daughter. Oh, honey, those answers might hurt worse than not knowing. I know, but I still need them. Marcus arrived an hour later. He'd brought coffee from Jasmine's favorite spot, and a resigned expression that said he understood this was happening whether he approved or not. The drive to Garfield Park took 30 minutes through Chicago's west side. The neighborhood was a mix of renovated brownstones and buildings that had seen better days, corner stores with barred windows next to new coffee shops, signaling gentrification's slow creep. Nicole's address was a 3-flat brick building on a tree-lined street. Not fancy, but respectable. Well-maintained. The kind of place a single mother might afford on a nurse's salary, supplemented by $1,500 a month from her baby's father. Jasmine felt sick. "Second floor apartment," Marcus said, checking his phone. "Number 2B. You sure about this?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." They climbed the steps together, Marcus slightly in front like he could somehow shield Jasmine from what was coming. He knocked on the door marked 2B. Nothing. He knocked again. From inside came the sound of a baby crying, then footsteps. The door opened to reveal the woman from the funeral, this time without the veil and sunglasses. Nicole was beautiful. That was Jasmine's first thought, and she hated herself for it. Beautiful in a way that was natural and effortless. Caramel skin, high cheekbones, full lips, exhausted eyes that probably came with new motherhood. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized Northwestern sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked younger than Jasmine had thought at the cemetery. Maybe 35, maybe younger. And in her arms, the baby from the photograph. Cameron, fussing and rubbing his eyes. The two women stared at each other. "I wondered if you'd come," Nicole said finally, her voice resigned. "You knew who I was at the funeral," Jasmine said. "You came to my husband's funeral and handed me that photograph knowing exactly what it would do." "I know. I'm sorry. Nicole shifted the baby to her other hip. "I couldn't let you not know. It wouldn't have been right." "Right?" Jasmine's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "What about any of this is right? What about sleeping with a married man? What about having his baby?" Cameron started crying louder, sensing the tension. "Can we—" Nicole gestured inside. "Can we not do this in the hallway? My neighbors don't need to hear this." Jasmine wanted to refuse, wanted to scream and rage and make a scene. But she also wanted answers more than she wanted revenge. So she nodded. Nicole's apartment was small but tidy, decorated with baby things. A playpen in the corner, toys scattered on the floor, bottles drying by the sink. There were photos on the walls. Nicole with friends, Nicole with an older woman who must be her mother, Nicole pregnant. And yes, several of Nicole with David. David at a park. David holding baby Cameron. David laughing at something off camera. A whole secret life documented in frames. "Sit," Nicole said, gesturing to a worn couch. She settled into a rocking chair, trying to soothe Cameron. "Can I get you water or anything?" "I don't want water. I want the truth." Nicole nodded slowly. "Okay. What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start from the beginning." So Nicole did. They'd met at a community health fair, where David's architecture firm had a booth promoting their pro bono work, designing affordable housing. Nicole was there as a pediatric nurse, volunteering with free health screenings. They'd talked, exchanged numbers for professional networking purposes. "That's what I told myself," Nicole said quietly, "that it was professional. But David was... he was charming, funny, interested in my work. We started meeting for coffee to discuss this affordable housing project his firm wanted to do in my neighborhood. Then coffee turned into dinner. Then you started sleeping with him." "Yes." Nicole didn't flinch from it. "I knew he was married. He told me from the beginning." "He said..." She stopped, looking down at Cameron. "What did he say?" "He said you were growing apart. That you were focused on your career and he felt lonely. That the marriage had become more like a business partnership than a relationship. He said you'd talked about separating but hadn't pulled the trigger yet." Jasmine felt like she'd been punched. "That's a lie. All of it. We weren't growing apart. We were trying to have a baby. We were in couples therapy to deal with the stress of infertility. We were working on our marriage." Nicole's face crumpled. "I didn't know about the baby trying. He never mentioned that. He said you didn't want children, that it was a point of contention between you. So he lied to both of us." "Yes." A tear rolled down Nicole's cheek. "I'm not trying to justify what I did. I knew it was wrong to be with a married man. But I believed him when he said the marriage was ending. I thought..." Her voice broke. I thought he was going to choose me, choose us. When I found out I was pregnant, he was happy. Scared, but happy. He said he wanted to be a father, that this was his chance to start over, while he was still married to me. He said he was going to tell you. He kept saying he'd tell you soon, that he was waiting for the right time. But there was always something. A work deadline, a holiday, your mother's birthday. Always an excuse. Jasmine stood up and walked to the window, needing distance. Below, Chicago moved on. Cars passing, people walking dogs, life continuing indifferent to the wreckage in this apartment. "Did you love him?" she asked without turning around. "Yes." Nicole's voice was soft. "I did. I know I shouldn't have. I know I was the other woman, the homewrecker, all the things people would call me. But yes, I loved him. And he loved you?" Silence. Jasmine turned around. Nicole was crying openly now, Cameron whimpering against her chest. "I don't know. He said he did. But how can you trust words from someone who's lying to his wife? If he could lie to you for 18 months, what was he lying to me about?" It was the first honest thing Nicole had said, and somehow it made Jasmine's rage deflate slightly. Because Nicole was right. David had lied to them both. He'd been living a double life, telling each woman what she wanted to hear, keeping them separate and ignorant. "Why did you come to the funeral?" Jasmine asked. "Why give me that photograph?" "Because you deserved to know, because—" Nicole wiped her face. "Because when David died, I realized Cameron lost his father, and you didn't even know he existed. And that felt wrong. More wrong than everything else. You were about to mourn a man you thought you knew, and I was mourning the same man but a completely different version. I thought you should know the truth. The truth destroyed me. I know. I'm sorry." Jasmine looked at Cameron, who had finally quieted down, his little fist gripping Nicole's shirt. He looked so much like David it hurt. The same long eyelashes, the same curve to his lips, the same warm skin tone. "He has David's eyes," Jasmine said. "Yeah, everyone says that." Nicole kissed the top of Cameron's head. "He'll never know his father. I'll have to explain one day why Daddy isn't here. And I don't even know what I'll say. How do you explain this situation to a child?" "How old are you?" Jasmine asked suddenly. 33. A year younger than Jasmine. Same generation, same city, same situation of being betrayed by the same man. Marcus, who'd been silent until now, spoke up from his position by the door. "Did David have life insurance?" Both women looked at him. "What?" Nicole asked. "Life insurance. Did he set Cameron up as a beneficiary?" Nicole shook her head. "I don't think so. He gave me money every month, but we never talked about long-term planning. I assumed—" She stopped. "I assumed we'd have time to figure all that out once he told you about us. He had a policy through work," Jasmine heard herself say. $500,000. I'm the sole beneficiary." Nicole's face showed she hadn't expected that. "I'm not asking for money." "I know." And surprisingly, Jasmine believed her. "But Cameron is David's son. Legally, he might be entitled to support. You should talk to a lawyer." "I can't afford a lawyer. And honestly, I don't have the energy to fight you. This situation is already complicated enough." Jasmine sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "I'm not your enemy. I mean, I should be. You slept with my husband. You had his baby. But—" She struggled to find the words. "You're not the villain here. David was, whatever. He did this. He lied to both of us. That doesn't absolve me of responsibility." "No. But it doesn't make you a monster either. Just human. Flawed and human. Like all of us." They sat in silence for a moment. Two women connected by the ghost of a man who'd loved them both. Or neither. Or something complicated in between. "What happens now?" Nicole asked. "I don't know," Jasmine admitted. I guess we figure out how to survive this, separately. I don't think—" She paused. "I don't think we can be friends or anything. That's too much. But Cameron is David's son. He's part of David's legacy. And I won't pretend he doesn't exist." "Thank you," Nicole whispered. Jasmine stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "One more question. Did he ever mention leaving me? Really leaving, not just talking about it?" Nicole met her eyes. "2 weeks before he died, he said he was going to tell you everything. He said he couldn't keep living a double life, that it was killing him. He said he didn't know who he'd choose, you or me, but he needed to be honest. Then he had the heart attack and—" She trailed off. "And neither of us got him," Jasmine finished. "Yeah, neither of us." Jasmine nodded and left the apartment, Marcus following close behind. She made it to the car before the tears came. Not just tears of grief anymore, but something more complicated. Relief, maybe, that David had been planning to tell the truth. Anger that he'd waited so long. Sorrow for all three of them. Her, Nicole, and Cameron. All casualties of David's inability to make a choice. As Marcus drove away from Garfield Park, Jasmine looked back once at the building where her husband's other family lived. Then she looked forward and didn't look back again. The weeks after meeting Nicole blurred together into a haze of logistics and grief. Jasmine moved through her days like an automaton, handling David's estate, fielding questions from his family about funeral expenses, sorting through belongings that now carried double meanings. Had Nicole given him that Northwestern sweatshirt she'd been wearing? Had he bought it for her? Or was it just a coincidence that they both liked the same school? Every item in Jasmine's house became suspect, every memory contaminated. She'd taken a leave of absence from her job at the financial firm, unable to focus on market analysis and client portfolios when her own life was in freefall. Her boss had been understanding. "Take all the time you need." But Jasmine knew there was a limit to corporate compassion. It was mid-November now, 6 weeks since David's death, 5 weeks since learning about Cameron. Chicago had turned cold, the kind of bitter wind that cut through your coat and reminded you that winter was coming whether you were ready or not. Jasmine sat in David's home office, which she'd been avoiding since his death. Now she needed to sort through it. The files, the papers, the detritus of a life lived partially in secret. Her mother and Marcus had offered to help, but she'd declined. This felt like something she needed to do alone. One last conversation with the husband she thought she knew. The office was quintessentially David, neat, organized, professional. His architecture degree hung on the wall alongside photos of buildings he'd designed. His desk held neatly labeled folders, his computer, a collection of pens he'd never let anyone else use. Jasmine started with the filing cabinet. Tax returns, utility bills, mortgage documents, the boring but necessary paperwork of adult life. Nothing unusual until she got to the bottom drawer, where a folder labeled personal caught her attention. Inside were letters. Not emails, but actual handwritten letters on nice stationery. They were from Nicole. Jasmine's hands shook as she read them, even though she knew she probably shouldn't. They were love letters, written in Nicole's neat cursive, chronicling the progression of their relationship. Early ones were cautious, hopeful, full of, "I know this is complicated, but..." Later ones were more confident, talking about their future, about Cameron, about the life they'd build once David settled things with Jasmine. One letter, dated March 2024, just a month after Cameron was born, made Jasmine stop breathing. "Dearest David, watching you hold our son fills my heart in ways I can't describe. You're such a natural father. Cameron is lucky to have you. I know you're struggling with telling Jasmine the truth, and I want you to know I understand. I don't want to pressure you or make this harder than it already is. But David, we can't live in limbo forever. Cameron deserves to have his father in his life fully, not just these stolen moments. And you deserve to be happy, to be free of the guilt I see eating at you. Whatever you decide, Stay with her or come to us. I need you to decide soon. Not because I'm giving you an ultimatum, but because all three of us deserve clarity. We deserve honesty, even when it hurts. I love you. Nicole. So Nicole had been pushing him to choose. And based on what she told Jasmine, he'd finally been planning to. Then he died. Jasmine set the letters aside and moved to David's computer. His password was the same as always, their anniversary, 10/1/2015. Of course. Even while maintaining a secret relationship, he'd kept their anniversary as his password. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the absurdity. His email was a treasure trove of evidence. Messages from Nicole, yes, but also calendar appointments carefully coded. Client meeting, NM, appeared every Friday evening from April 2023 onward. NM. Nicole M. Jasmine clicked through the calendar, watching the pattern. Friday nights. The nights David had claimed he was working late, or meeting with clients, or dealing with project deadlines. He'd established a routine, carved out consistent time for his other life. She found the emails about Cameron's birth, David asking Nicole if she needed anything, Nicole sending updates about contractions, David's panicked message that he was on his way when she went into labor, his reply when she sent the first photos. He's perfect. You're perfect. I can't believe he's mine. Ours. I wish I could be there all the time. Soon. I promise. Soon. Promises he never kept because death intervened. Jasmine's phone rang. Diane, David's mother. She almost didn't answer, but guilt won out. Diane had lost her son. Whatever David had done, his mother was grieving too. Hello, Diane. Jasmine, honey. How are you holding up? Diane's voice was warm but strained. She'd aged 10 years in 6 weeks. I'm managing, sorting through some of David's things today. Oh, that must be so hard. Listen, Marcus mentioned you might be coming by this weekend. I'm cooking Sunday dinner, and it would mean a lot to have you here. You're still family, sweetie. Always will be. Family. Jasmine felt the word like a knife. Did Diane know about Cameron? Did Marcus tell her? Or was Jasmine carrying this secret alone, protecting David's image even after death? I'll try, Jasmine said, non-committal. This week has been busy. Of course, whenever you're ready. The invitation is always open. A pause. Jasmine, can I ask you something? Sure. Did David seem troubled to you before he died? Marcus mentioned finding some financial irregularities, money transfers David hadn't mentioned. I'm just trying to understand if my son was in some kind of trouble we didn't know about. So Marcus had told his mother something, just not the full truth. He seemed stressed, Jasmine said carefully. Work was demanding, but he didn't mention any financial problems. Well, if you find anything while sorting through his things, will you let me know? I just want to understand my son's last days. Jasmine lied, knowing she would never share what she'd found. Diane didn't need to know her son had a secret child. That knowledge would destroy her. After hanging up, Jasmine returned to the computer and found David's bank statements. The monthly transfers to Nicole were there. Yes, but there were other things too. Charges at baby stores. A payment to Northwestern Hospital's maternity ward. Venmo transactions labeled with baby bottle emojis. David had been living 2 complete lives, juggling finances, time, emotions. The stress of it must have been enormous. Had the stress killed him? Had the weight of his lies literally broken his heart? Jasmine would never know. She spent the rest of the afternoon documenting everything, taking photos, making lists, creating a file of evidence she wasn't sure what to do with. By the time the sun set, painting David's office in shades of orange and gold, she'd constructed a timeline of his affair from start to finish. April 2023. Met Nicole at health fair. May 2023. First dinner together. June 2023. Relationship became physical. August 2023. Nicole discovered she was pregnant. September 2023. David promised to tell Jasmine soon. February 2024. Cameron born March-October 2024. David continued double life, sending money, visiting regularly. October 2024. David planned to finally tell Jasmine the truth. October 2024. David died a year and a half of lies. A year and a half of Jasmine living in ignorance while her husband built a family with someone else. Her phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Jasmine almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Mrs. Carter? This is Lisa Chen from Northwestern Memorial Hospital Billing Department. I'm calling about an outstanding balance on account number. I'm sorry, what? Jasmine interrupted. What account? The maternity services from February 2024. We have David Carter listed as financially responsible party, but there's an unpaid balance of $4,200. The insurance only covered a portion and... Stop, Jasmine said. I need you to send me the full details of this account. Everything. I'll call you back. She hung up and stared at the phone. David hadn't just been sending Nicole money. He'd been paying Cameron's hospital bills. Or trying to. And apparently hadn't finished. Another complication. Another problem to solve. Jasmine pulled up her contact list and scrolled to a number she'd saved weeks ago but never called. Nicole's cell. It rang 3 times before Nicole answered, sounding harried. Hello? It's Jasmine. Are you aware David left an unpaid hospital bill from Cameron's birth? Silence. Then, no. He said he'd taken care of everything. He paid the initial bills, but I guess... I didn't know there was more. $4,200 more. Oh, God. Nicole's voice was tight. I can't afford that. I'm barely making rent and daycare as it is. Without David's monthly help, I've been... She stopped. I'm sorry. This isn't your problem. But it was, wasn't it? Because David's debts were now Jasmine's responsibility as his widow. And Cameron was David's son, whether Jasmine liked it or not. I'll handle it, Jasmine heard herself say. I'll pay the bill. Jasmine, no. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. But I'm not going to let David's son start life with medical debt hanging over him. Consider it a gift, not from me to you, but from David to Cameron, the father he should have been. Nicole was crying. Jasmine could hear it through the phone. Thank you. I don't deserve your kindness. Probably not, Jasmine said honestly. But Cameron does. He didn't ask for any of this. After she hung up, Jasmine sat in David's office as darkness filled the room. She didn't turn on the lights. She just sat there, surrounded by evidence of her husband's double life, making peace with what she had to do. She couldn't change the past. Couldn't undo David's choices, or rewrite their history. But she could control what happened next. The next morning, Jasmine called Lisa Carmichael, the same attorney who'd handled her friend Tasha's divorce. Over coffee at a Starbucks in the Loop, Jasmine explained the situation. All of it. David's death, Nicole, Cameron, the money, the lies. Lisa listened without judgment, taking notes. First thing, Lisa said when Jasmine finished, we need to establish paternity legally. Even though you believe Cameron is David's son based on appearance and David's own documentation, we need DNA confirmation for legal purposes. Why? I'm not contesting anything. Because Cameron might be entitled to survivor benefits, Social Security, David's life insurance, pension benefits from his employer. But to claim those, paternity has to be legally established. This isn't about whether you believe he's David's son. It's about protecting that child's legal rights. Jasmine hadn't thought of that. Would that come out of my insurance payout? Not necessarily. Many policies have provisions for unknown dependents discovered after death. But even if it does split the benefit, Cameron is legally entitled to support as David's child. I know this isn't easy, but do it, Jasmine interrupted. Set up the paternity test. Make sure Cameron gets what he's entitled to. David screwed up a lot of things, but his son shouldn't suffer for it. Lisa nodded approvingly. You're handling this with more grace than most people would. I don't feel graceful. I feel angry and betrayed and lost. But punishing a baby for his father's mistakes would make me a monster, and I'm not that person. Over the next 2 weeks, Lisa worked her magic. She contacted Nicole, explained the situation, and arranged for DNA testing. Nicole was hesitant at first. I don't want to cause Jasmine more pain, but agreed when she understood it was about Cameron's financial security. The results came back in early December. 99.9% probability that David Carter was Cameron's biological father. It was official. David had a son. Lisa filed paperwork with Social Security and David's life insurance company. Cameron was entitled to monthly survivor benefits until age 18, plus a portion of the life insurance payout. After legal fees and calculations, Jasmine's $500,000 benefit would be split, $300,000 to her, $200,000 held in trust for Cameron. Jasmine signed the papers without hesitation. Most widows would fight this, Lisa said. You're giving up $200,000. I'm giving Cameron what his father would have wanted him to have. What he should have set up legally, but didn't because he died before he could clean up his mess. Jasmine signed the last page. Money won't give him his father back, but at least it'll give him a future. That evening, Jasmine called Nicole to tell her the news. I don't know what to say, Nicole said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. You don't have to thank me. Just make sure Cameron knows when he's old enough that his father loved him. Whatever else David was, he loved that baby. I saw it in his emails. He was terrified and confused and a coward about being honest, but he loved Cameron. I will. I promise. And Nicole? Jasmine paused. I don't think we'll ever be friends. The situation is too complicated, too painful. But I don't hate you. I did at first, but I don't anymore. We were both victims of David's inability to be honest. So I guess what I'm saying is, good luck. To you and Cameron both. Good luck to you too, Jasmine. You deserve happiness. I hope you find it. After hanging up, Jasmine felt something she hadn't felt in months. Lightness. Not happiness. She wasn't ready for that yet. But a sense that maybe, possibly, she could survive this. She'd lost her husband twice. Once to death, once to the truth about who he really was. She'd lost her marriage, her trust, her vision of the future. But she hadn't lost herself. She was still Jasmine Carter. Still standing. Still fighting. And that would have to be enough. Spring came to Chicago with the usual dramatic flair. One day snow flurries, the next day 70 degrees, and everyone in the city pretending winter had never happened. Jasmine stood on the lakefront near Navy Pier, watching sailboats dot Lake Michigan's blue expanse, and realized she'd survived 6 months. 6 months since David died. 6 months since learning about Cameron. 6 months of grief therapy, legal paperwork, difficult conversations, and slowly, painfully slowly, rebuilding her life. The city looked different to her now. Or maybe she was different, and the city was just the same. Either way, Chicago felt less like home and more like a place holding memories she needed distance from. She'd put the Bronzeville house on the market in March. It sold in 2 weeks, a young couple excited about the good bones and the neighborhood. Jasmine felt nothing watching them sign the papers. That house had stopped being hers the moment she learned David had another life. She'd moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park, closer to the lake, with huge windows and none of David's ghost lingering in the corners. She'd bought new furniture, nothing from the old house except a few personal items and books. Starting fresh meant exactly that. Work had been understanding, allowing her to return part-time in January, then full-time in March. But Jasmine's heart wasn't in financial analysis anymore. She'd spent too many hours contemplating mortality and meaning to care about market fluctuations and investment portfolios. So she'd started quietly looking for something else. Something that mattered. Something that felt like building rather than just maintaining. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Lunch this week. Need to talk to you about something. Jasmine smiled. Beverly had been her rock through all of this, never judging, never pushing, just present, steady, exactly what Jasmine needed. She texted back, Thursday? That new place in Hyde Park? Beverly's response was immediate. Perfect. 12:30. Love you, baby. Jasmine pocketed her phone and continued her walk along the lakefront path. The exercise helped. Her therapist, Dr. Monica Richardson, had suggested it months ago. Grief lives in the body, she'd said. You have to move it through. So Jasmine walked. Miles and miles along Lake Michigan, through neighborhoods, past landmarks, moving the grief through her body one step at a time. She'd run into Marcus once, at a coffee shop in Hyde Park. He'd been awkward, unsure how to act around her now that his brother's betrayal had been exposed. But Jasmine had made it easy, hugged him, asked about his life, made it clear she didn't blame him for David's choices. I miss him, Marcus had admitted, but I'm also angry at him. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Jasmine had replied. I miss the man I thought he was. I'm angry at the man he actually was. Both things can be true. She hadn't seen or heard from Nicole since the legal paperwork was finalized. Cameron's trust fund was set up, survivor benefits established, all the practical matters handled. They existed in separate orbits now, connected only by David's ghost and a legal document. Jasmine had seen one photo of Cameron. Nicole had sent it through the lawyer with a note. Thank you for everything. Cameron is thriving. I thought you might want to see. The baby was bigger now, almost a year old, sitting up and smiling at the camera with David's eyes and David's smile. Jasmine had looked at the photo once, acknowledged that yes, he was beautiful and healthy and thriving, then filed it away. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. Cameron was David's son, but he wasn't her responsibility. She'd done what she could financially. The emotional labor of caring about David's other child was too much to ask of herself. Thursday arrived with warm sunshine and the smell of blooming magnolias. Jasmine met her mother at the new restaurant, a farm-to-table place that served excellent grain bowls and pressed juices. Beverly looked good, Jasmine noted. Retirement agreed with her. She'd been traveling, taking classes, volunteering, living the life she'd earned after decades of hard work. You look better, Beverly said after they ordered. More color in your face, more life in your eyes. Therapy helps. Walking helps. Time helps, I guess. And what about your heart? How's that healing? Jasmine considered the question. Slowly. Some days I'm fine. Some days I'm angry all over again. Some days I just miss him. Not the real him, but the version of him I thought existed. Is that weird? Not weird at all, baby. You're mourning two losses, the man and the marriage. Both were real to you, even if one was built on lies. You're allowed to grieve both. Their food arrived, colorful bowls full of quinoa, roasted vegetables, avocado, and grilled chicken. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. So, Beverly said eventually, I have something to tell you, and I want you to hear me out before you react. Jasmine set down her fork, suddenly nervous. Okay. I've been offered a position, a nursing consultancy job with an organization that works in rural Georgia, helping set up community health clinics. It's temporary, 6 months to a year, but it's exciting work, meaningful work. That's great, Mama. Why would I react badly to that? Because it means I'd be leaving Chicago, moving to a small town near Savannah. And I know you've been leaning on me these past months. I don't want you to feel abandoned. Jasmine reached across the table and took her mother's hand. Mama, I'm not a child. I'm 34 years old. I've survived a lot this year, and yes, you've been instrumental in that survival. But I'm okay now. I'm going to be okay. You should take this job if it excites you. You're sure? Positive. Actually, Jasmine paused, then took the plunge. I've been thinking about leaving Chicago too. Not permanently necessarily, but I need space, distance. Too many memories here. Where would you go? I don't know yet. Maybe somewhere warm. Maybe somewhere completely different. I've been looking at jobs in other cities. Atlanta, Charlotte, Austin. Places where I could start over, where no one knows me as David's widow or the woman whose husband had a secret baby. Beverly squeezed her hand. That makes sense. Sometimes you need geography to help you heal. They finished lunch talking about possibilities. Beverly's new adventure in Georgia, Jasmine's potential relocations, the future that suddenly felt open rather than terrifying. As they walked back to their cars, Beverly stopped and turned to Jasmine. I'm proud of you. I know I say that a lot, but I mean it. What you went through would have destroyed a lot of people. But you chose grace. You chose to handle it with integrity. Even when it would have been easier to be bitter and vengeful, you chose the high road. I don't know if it was the high road or just survival, Jasmine said. I did what I had to do to live with myself. That's the same thing, baby. Character is how you behave when life gives you every reason to be cruel, and you choose kindness anyway. 2 months later, Jasmine stood in her new apartment in Austin, Texas, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. The job offer from a nonprofit focused on financial literacy for underserved communities had come through in May. She'd accepted immediately. Chicago would always be home in some ways. It's where she'd grown up, where she'd become an adult, where she'd loved and lost. But Austin represented something new, a fresh start, a chance to be someone other than the tragic widow with the complicated past. Her first week at the new job had been intense but invigorating. The work was meaningful, teaching low-income families about budgeting, savings, escaping debt cycles. It felt right in a way her old corporate job never had. Maybe David's betrayal had given her an unexpected gift, the freedom to rebuild her life according to what she actually wanted, rather than what she thought she was supposed to want. She'd made a friend at work, Keisha, a program coordinator who'd invited Jasmine to join her book club. Baby steps toward a social life, toward trusting people again. It would take time, but Jasmine was willing to try. Her phone rang, an unknown Chicago number. Jasmine almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello? Jasmine, it's Nicole. A pause. I'm sorry to call. I know we said we'd keep our distance, but something happened and I thought you should know. Jasmine's stomach tightened. Is Cameron okay? Cameron's fine. It's not about him. It's... Nicole took a breath. I'm getting married. To someone I've been seeing for a few months. Someone who knows everything about David and Cameron and all of it, and wants to be Cameron's father. I'm telling David's family this week, and I thought you should hear it from me first, rather than through the grapevine. Jasmine sat down on one of her unpacked boxes, processing this. That's good news. Cameron should have a father figure. I'm happy for you. Really? Nicole sounded surprised. I was worried you'd think it was too soon, or disrespectful, or... Nicole, stop. You don't need my permission to move forward with your life. I'm doing the same thing. We both deserve happiness after everything. David's been gone almost a year. That's long enough to mourn, and still be allowed to find joy again. Thank you for saying that. Nicole's voice was thick with emotion. I felt so guilty, like I don't deserve happiness after what I did. We all deserve happiness, Jasmine said firmly. Even when we make mistakes, even when we hurt people, we all deserve a chance to do better, be better. So marry your guy. Build your family. Give Cameron the stable, honest life he deserves. That's the best thing you can do. After hanging up, Jasmine sat in her new apartment, in her new city, in her new life, and felt truly at peace for the first time in a year. Nicole moving on meant David's ghost could finally rest. Cameron would have a father, maybe not the one he was born with, but one who'd chosen him, which was perhaps better, and Jasmine could finally let go. She pulled out her laptop and opened a document she'd been working on for months, a memoir about betrayal, grief, and survival. Her therapist had suggested writing it all down, and once Jasmine started, she couldn't stop. It poured out of her, the pain, the anger, the confusion, but also the growth. She titled it, Shadows at the Funeral, and wrote in the introduction, "This is not a love story, though it begins with love. This is not a tragedy, though tragedy runs through it. This is a story about discovering that the person you loved never existed, not in the way you thought, and learning to love yourself enough to survive that truth. This is about standing at a funeral and having your entire world shift in a moment. This is about grace when you want revenge, about kindness when you want cruelty, about choosing to move forward when everything in you wants to look back. This is my story, but maybe it's yours too. Because loss is universal, betrayal is common, and the choice to survive with integrity is one we all face eventually. This is about how I made that choice, even when it broke me. Especially when it broke me." She worked on the manuscript for hours, losing track of time, channeling everything she'd been through into words on a page. When she finally stopped, the Austin sky was dark and her fingers were cramped, but she felt lighter. This was her story now. Not the victim's story, not the widow's story, but the survivor's story. The story of a woman who'd been handed a photograph at a funeral and had her life implode, but who'd chosen to rebuild with grace and integrity, who'd chosen to protect an innocent child even when it cost her money and peace, who'd chosen truth over comfort, growth over bitterness. Jasmine stood in a bookstore in downtown Austin, watching people browse the shelves, and felt surreal pride. Her book, Shadows at the Funeral, sat on the featured table near the front, a small but growing pile of copies with her author photo on the back. The memoir had been published 6 months ago by a small press that specialized in personal narratives. It wasn't a bestseller, but it had found its audience. Women who'd been betrayed, people navigating complicated grief, anyone trying to survive the unsurvivable. She'd done a few readings, some podcast interviews, connected with readers through social media, who told her the book helped them feel less alone. That meant more than any bestseller list could. "Excuse me, are you Jasmine Carter?" A young woman approached, maybe 25, holding a copy of the book. "The author?" "I am. I just wanted to thank you. I'm going through..." She paused, choosing words carefully. "Something similar to what you wrote about. And your book made me feel like I wasn't crazy, like I could survive it too." "You will," Jasmine said firmly. "I promise you will. It won't feel like it for a while, but one day you'll wake up and realize you're okay. Not perfect, not without scars, but okay." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Really." After she left, Jasmine bought a coffee from the bookstore cafe and sat by the window, watching Austin's afternoon crowds. She'd built a life here. Friends, meaningful work, a cute apartment near Zilker Park. She'd gone on dates, had a brief relationship that didn't work out, but taught her she could trust again. She'd reconnected with old college friends, made peace with David's family, even sent Nicole a congratulations card when Cameron turned 2. She was happy. Actually genuinely happy. Not the naive happiness of her marriage, built on illusions, but the hard-won happiness of someone who'd been through fire and come out, forged into something stronger. Her phone buzzed. A text from her literary agent. "Great news. Film producer wants to option the book. Interested?" Jasmine stared at the text, then laughed. Of course. Because life was absurd and beautiful and painful and surprising all at once. She typed back, "Let's talk details." Because why not? Her story had helped her survive. Maybe it could help others too. Maybe that was the point of all of it. The betrayal, the grief, the hard choices. Maybe the point was to transform pain into something meaningful. As the Texas sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jasmine finished her coffee and walked out into the warm evening. She thought about David sometimes, but less often now. She'd forgiven him mostly, though that forgiveness came with boundaries and realism. He'd been a flawed human who'd made terrible choices. She'd been collateral damage. Both things were true. She thought about Cameron occasionally too, hoping he was thriving with Nicole and her husband, hoping he'd grow up knowing he was loved, even if his origin story was complicated. But mostly, Jasmine thought about herself, about the woman she'd become through necessity and choice, the woman who'd stood at a funeral and had her world shattered, but who'd picked up the pieces and built something new, something authentic, something hers. As she walked through Austin's downtown streets, past food trucks and live music venues and people laughing on patios, Jasmine felt truly free for the first time since David died. Free from the past, free from the lies, free from the need to be anyone other than exactly who she was. A survivor, a writer, a woman still learning how to trust, but no longer afraid to try. The stranger in black at the funeral had destroyed Jasmine's old life with a single photograph. But in doing so, she'd inadvertently given Jasmine permission to build something better, something real. And for that, Jasmine was unexpectedly grateful.